Scrappy people, it's Tracy Reed here today, coming at you with a gloriously awesome, in my opinion, Project Life, well, pocket slash 9 by 12 page. So if you follow me on Instagram, you saw these pictures already. I did a solo hike up a mountain in Knoxville called House Mountain, and it was just I went out on a whim on a Wednesday morning, and if I had known that the hike was going to be as intense as it was, I probably would have A, left earlier, or B, chose a different day, because it took me about 3 hours to go 3 miles, because it is a 2100 foot straight up hike, and it was beautiful and glorious, and I felt strong and powerful after having done it. So I did that this last week, and I scrapbooked these photos in the same week because I loved them and I loved the feeling of them so much. So obviously I blew up that one photo on the left there. I don't know the exact dimensions. It's like a 9 by 5 or something like that, which I just had printed on an 8 by 10 piece of photo paper, and because I knew I wanted it to be large. And I'm using the Ali Edwards, mostly the Move kit and the July Stories by the Month kit. They were perfect for these photos, and I was really excited to pull them out. But I also brought in the Joy and Breathe acrylic words. I will admit I have a hard time using these large acrylic words, but they were perfect for these photos, and I had perfect places for them, so I got to use two on one spread. So you can see that I'm going through and pulling out cards and embellishments that I want to use, and I'm going to start gluing everything down. There's always well, most of the time there's a striped card in Ali's kits, so I used that one, and I'm actually going to use this navy blue card that says Move as a background for this photo, because I don't typically use the cards that just have one big word or even a sentiment on a 4x6. It's not generally how I scrapbook. I like to save my 4x6 slots for photos, so I knew that it would work better as a background than as a card for me. And besides, I have the acrylic giant Move piece anyway that I do end up using actually directly after this while I was scrapbooking on a different page. So you know, I still have that sentiment and I don't need it to be on the card. So I'm using these circular journal blocks as little placeholders and design elements. There's lots of circles in this kit, so I'm using them up, creating a lot of repetition. I have two wood veneers from the Move kit that say Go and Go, so I decided to put outside in between them. So it says Go Outside Go. I've been finding a lot of centering and grounding in getting out in the morning and running or hiking in this instance, or walking the dogs, which is not something I generally have been a fan of in my life. I'm not a huge outdoorsy person, certainly not a huge exercise person, but a lot has shifted over the last 3 or 4 months for me, and I've turned into an exercise person, and apparently I'm turning into an outdoorsy person now. So that seemed to work for the sentiment that I was wanting. It's a photo of my feet hanging off the edge of the cliff. You can see the view from the cliff on that Breathe photo, and that was the view from my feet hanging over that cliff. It's the same cliff that I'm standing on the edge of in that large photo as well, so they're all taken at the same time. And that was a photo of me. It was a really steep hike, so I stopped and took a few photos that seemed really scenic, and actually the camera, since I had to set a self-timer, the camera focused on the rocks and not me, but it actually kind of turned out pretty cool. I'm kind of like a fuzzy figure in the background, but I kind of like it anyway. Then there's a few more of me sitting on the cliff. Again, I'm using a lot of circles from the kits, layering them to create sort of a bubbly effect. Got a lot going on here. This Move kit really spoke to me more than a lot of the kits recently, so I was really eager to dive into it. So now I've got 3 places for journaling on this side of the page. And I'm looking at, these are word stickers from the July Stories by the Month kit, but there's a lot of, different ones that will work. So I'm kind of pulling some out. Added one under the breathe. I think it says today's adventure or something like that. And I think I'm about done with this side other than the journaling, which I will add in off camera later. Decide to add this little arrow. I wanted there to be one more circle on this photo to kind of tie it all together. So I added the little chipboard arrow. Now I'm going to move on to the 9x12 side of the page, which is easily going to be one of my favorite layouts of the year. And it's funny too because it's not simple necessarily, but it's definitely way more simple than I normally scrapbook, which tends to happen when you have an enlargement like that. But man, it came together so perfectly and I love it so much. So I decided to mount the photo on white. And if you watch me, you know that I am not a solid cardstock person, nor am I a white cardstock person. But this is where I decided to start to see, how I could do with a more simple layout. So yeah, white cardstock. You can't get much more simple than that. So I'm going to figure out where to place this photo. Needs a little bit more trimming though. I think I cut it a little off. A little crooked. There we go. I wanted it to be slightly smaller than the 9x12 anyway because I didn't want it to go fully edge to edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this joy, I'm going to glue it down on the photo because I already knew where I wanted that. And then I'm going to take this journaling card that came in, I think it's the Move kit. It might have been no, I think it's the Move kit. Anyway, I'm cutting out the sentiment because I don't need the big card part. I'm going to put it right down here in the bottom corner of this photo, kind of overlapping the edge. Chipboard above the joy. Again, keeping it very simple, but I love my words. So I'm going to have lots of words on here. This quote was absolute perfection for this photo. Just really spoke to me. So now I've got the basis for this, and I have this green journaling card, and it says I can do this. But again, I struggle a bit with the journaling cards, or especially 4x6s that have just like a small sentiment in the middle. It feels like a lot of wasted space for me. So it doesn't always they don't get used unless I figure out some other way to use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the top off of this green card. I'm going to use this green strip underneath the arrow card that I just mounted. And then I'm going to take the other portion of the journaling card and I'm going to stick it out over the top of my photo. So not only do I get the green in both places that way, but it also frames the photo in this sort of offset vibe that I've got going on here, which kind of mimics that yellow word art. So I've got a lot of asymmetrical symmetry going on here. And this is looking, I mean, a lot of people would end this here, maybe add some journaling. I'm going to add journaling on the other side, so I don't have any journaling to add to this side. So I'm going to glue this down. Then I decide that I just can't take all the white. It just is not going to work for me. So I want to bring in some more of that navy from the other side. So I pull out my Sunshine and Blue Skies collection, which I know has that navy polka dot in there. And of course I've already used it because I love the floral that's on the back. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to trim this down so that it's 9 inches wide, which leaves a little bit of those circles a little bit of that missing piece circle down there, but not too bad. And then I'm going to tear it. I'm doing a lot of tearing lately. So I'm going to tear it sort of slopey, like a mountain. I mean, that was kind of my thought process there, is that it would be not exactly a mountain, but sort of, you know, evoking that sort of mountainous feel. So I'm going to do that at the bottom, and then I decide that I need it at the top as well because the whole thing needs to be framed. So I'm going to take this little piece that I have left, talk about using up your scraps, and I'm going to do the same thing, a bit smaller of a piece, but I'm going to slope it in the opposite direction. So instead of sloping from left to right, it's going to slope from right to left to sort of give it that asymmetry again. Then I am done with this layout. It's hands down one of my favorites of this year. I absolutely adore it. It came together so fast. This whole thing was like 35 minutes, and I love it when that happens. Alright, so if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. Thank you.